I'm Kirk, and I have Mutt here, and Steve from Gloucester, who's a big fan of yours, right, Steve?
Yeah, I am.
Yes,
Hi, Jamie.
Yes.
Huge fan.
Well, thanks.
You got me? Am I on there?
Here he is.
All right, we're good to go?
Yes, sir.
All right, good morning. All right, yes, good morning. All right, the show is still going on. Sorry, it's been kind of a chaotic show. I had a big fight with my boss, Dave Portnoy, earlier, so now we're rolling into you guys, so we can have some calm at least, which is nice. I'm excited. So I discovered you guys, obviously from the show, but then like on Facebook has like this dumb, it's like the TikTok, Facebook, you know what I'm talking about? These like 1 minute clips. So I found you guys there, and then I found the podcast, and it's fantastic. I'm really enjoying it.
Thank you.
Wow, I'm blown away. I had no idea that you listened.
Yes, I know, and I just started. I just started a couple weeks ago, and I'm enjoying it. What was the like? Do you guys? So I did you have a relationship where you guys drifted off for a while and then got back together, or have you been tight since the show ended?
You want to take this one, Rob?
Go ahead, you can take it.
All right. Well, no, Rob and I have always been close. We've done different things. We moved to different places when the show ended, but there was always still a very significant relationship with there. But then when we both lived in LA at the same time, started hanging out more. And I give all the credit to Rob. Originally, he had come to me and had the idea to start a podcast with our friend Kasim, who I actually literally met the first episode that we recorded that podcast. It was called Pajama Pants. And we did that for a little 2 years, Rob? 2.5 years?
Yeah, almost 3.
And then in COVID, we kind of got funky. I moved to Austin, and then Rob moved to Austin, and then Tom Segura and Christina P. Approached Rob because they were fans of Pajama Pants about doing a podcast with Your Mom's House with YMH Network. And so here we are. It is
so wild. Like, I'm looking at Rob. I've watched him. He's podcasting on bar. He seems like a super nice guy. I see his frigging face, and I want to do what Tony Soprano does and like throw him in the closet still after all these goddamn years. And he's such a nice guy in these podcasts. But I think of ages, and now it's funny the way the show works. Because when I watched the show originally, it was 25 years ago. I was younger. I didn't really have kids. And now I have like kids AJ's age at that time, and now I'm having like, I feel like Tony when I see, because of course this guy looks exactly the friggin' same as he did 25 years ago, which is nuts.
Absolutely.
But like, you must still, obviously, you still get that where people are like, AJ was just such a little shit. That's to your credit, by the way, as an actor. But it is funny. When I look at you, I'm like oddly triggered. But I know you're a nice guy.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I also have a bit of a asshole like loser in me, where like when Jamie says we stopped talking, or not stopped talking, but like we moved to different places and weren't as close, as because I moved to Vegas for years by myself to just gamble.
Just gamble, right?
Yeah, to just party and gamble. So like there is that, like I'm sure at that time my dad felt the same way about me that Tony felt about AJ all the time, which is like, what the fuck are you like? Jamie's going off to LA and doing all these wonderful things and this, and I'm like, yeah, I'm fucking, I'm at the strip club at Wednesday afternoon, but. Listen, like we did a book one time for Sopranos, and my line in it was like, I wish there are times where I want to slap AJ, so I fully understand when other people are like sometimes I'd read the script and be like, oh God, you know what I mean? Like, you're like, fuck, I got to do this. But doing it and, with David Chase writing it and James acting in it and everybody, like, you're like, this is so good. This is exactly what it should be,
But the show oddly like turned into that final season like a huge AJ arc. Like maybe even with the girlfriend the last couple of seasons where out of nowhere, clearly David Chase wanted to investigate that somehow. There's something going on maybe in his life, I don't know, where that became a real focal point of the series, to the point where I was getting frustrated, but in a good way. It was good. It was good. I mean, I don't know if there's a question there, but it's interesting watching it again now that happened.
Yeah, I mean, I've never watched it, so I don't know.
Oh, right. Yeah.
All I can remember is like I probably was working a little more towards the end. I know, like, obviously it was more serious stuff and with like the suicide and stuff like that, but one of my friends, Frank, always tells me, he's like, I'll never forget, we were at a party with the writers from Sopranos, and guys like Tony Sirico would always talk to the writers and be like, I need more work, or like, blah, blah, blah. You got to put me in more. He'd be like, there's every time a new writer would get hired, he'd be like, there's one rule around this set. He goes, I don't get killed. I don't get whacked, like blah, blah, blah. And my friend was like, I remember you going up to the writer and being like, can you put me in less? Like you were like, I want to work, because I just wanted to drink and hang out with my friends. And I was, 18, 19. And again, much like AJ, being a jerk off and just wanting to be a kid, I guess.
Do you guys, I was thinking about this morning when I was running before I fell again, and not that you guys care, but the listeners' podcast know I struggle with my balance running.
I care. I do
care. I mean, it's not about me. The interview's about you. I think
I watched you running around the Barstool office all during surviving.
That's true. I did. Thank you, Robert. Until I got absolutely screwed over. But like, I was trying to avoid questions. Like, what are the Mount Rushmore? The 2 or 3 questions you guys sit down for an interview? You're like, don't ask me about. I would guess like the ending of the series, or I don't even. I have no idea. The 2 or 3 questions where you go in the interview, you're like, I hope this guy doesn't ask this fucking question. I'm so sick of this. Or do you just like talking about the series so much still?
I mean, the ending, I think, yes, only because there's like no information for us to give at this point. I mean, we've said all we can say about it. Everybody has their feelings about it. But other than that, not really. I mean, Sopranos is not like part of my day-to-day life. Like It doesn't get brought up. I'm like a mom 90% of the time. So it's not a bother to me when we talk about it. And on our podcast, we talk a little bit about it. We just did a 25th anniversary special episode for it. Mm-hmm. But I would say it's probably the least talked about topic. I think we talk about poop and dating profiles a lot more than Sopranos.
You guys are both pooping with regularity still? Or you guys, I'm regular, still post run, 7:20, 7:30. I'm still good. The older I get, once a day solid. You guys are good in that aspect.
You can run before you poop?
I run before I poop because it's almost like my body has an agreement. It just kind of triggers. Yeah. And I get sort of turtleish about 5 minutes to go, but then it becomes almost like a way to kill the last 5 minutes. That's my pooping journey.
I've noticed recently that's changed my life is after every meal now, I walk anywhere from 15 to, as much as I can, but at least 15 minutes. And it's made me even more regular.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, it triggers you. It's a good poop trigger, right?
It's just, for me, it's just like if I eat and then just sit around and do nothing, the next day when I'm a morning poop guy, but that next day, the poop is not great. Where after I eat, I do a 15 to 30 minute walk. The next day, it's just everything is flowing great.
Right. Yes. So that's not one of the questions you guys are sick of, I guess is my point. Right. More the finale. Right. Sure. More the finale than that, I guess. Although I will say
it's not even
yeah.
Sorry.
No, go ahead. You're good.
I was going to say, it's not even like I'm sick of any questions, because all these questions do is bring back memories of incredible memories with my friends and people who I loved. And we always had the best time. So I'm never I hope I don't get asked this, but it is always better when you get asked stuff that you don't get asked all the time, obviously. Yeah.
Let me ask. So I love this. So I love the show. I mean, I've watched the show 5 million times. Who of the guest stars was the biggest asshole? That's a new one, right?
Yeah, that's what people don't ask that a lot. What I always say is there weren't a lot of assholes on set, because if you were an asshole on set, David could kill you.
You'd be gone, right? You'd just be right.
And there were stories of that kind of happening, or maybe somebody who let out information about the show. Like if you did that.
Oh, right.
It was, and now I know now with big shows, people have to sign stuff and all this stuff. With us, it was you didn't want to give information. Yeah. My family wanted to know stuff, and I'd be like, why the fuck would I tell you? I want you to be shocked. I would never tell you who's going to die.
The one thing he did a lot too was oh, go ahead, Meadow. Meadow, Jesus, Jamie. I'm telling you, it's crazy. It's crazy. Jamie, I apologize.
While everyone was super warm and friendly and professional, I think anybody that was coming on to guest star in the show, and you're walking into a set and James Gandolfini standing there and Tony Sirico standing there.
Right.
These guys, you're just not going to be an asshole. You're coming in with respect, and you're coming in on your best behavior.
It was funny with the show, though, because I'm not saying these people were bad people, but it was fun. One of the funny things about the show is he would just recast people just like in the middle of nowhere, like the FBI agent, one of Tony's sisters, like all of a sudden I'm watching it like the next season. I'm thinking, I don't think it was sort of before the internet was
that was the one time that someone got recast for being a bit of a dick.
Who was that?
That's as much as I'm going to say.
One time.
But yes, that was one time.
Barbara?
Was kind of not being cool. And then David being like, okay, well, next season it's going to come back as somebody else.
Was it the Barbara character?
No, it was like the FBI informant.
Oh,
person.
the FBI
Yeah,
informant.
the FBI.
Oh, Harris?
No, Harris was the agent.
No,
he was
the agent.
No, he was there. He was there the
Not
whole
a guy.
time. Not a guy. Oh, okay. I know what you're talking about. See, there you go.
Wow, I didn't even. I'm learning about the show on here. I didn't even remember that.
Interesting.
No, it's 10:41. I just zero fucks are given right now.
So Steve's a big fan of the show, and so he's sort of a rotating. He comes in once in a while on the show. He's a huge fan. I was going to allow him one question about the show, and then one wild card question about anything. I will say this: the other day on the show, randomly, Jamie, we were talking about who the most beautiful woman in the world is today, and one of my producers, out of nowhere, said you.
What?
Yes, which, by the way, is I have no absolutely a candidate, but it was so random, and now you are here. So you were nominated.
That's so nice. I'm definitely far from the most beautiful, but
you look great.
You are giving me a pep in my step today.
Yes. Well, if you met the producer, you wouldn't feel as strong about that. But still, hey, look, I would take it, no question. Steve, go ahead.
I know you guys, talk about your relationship a lot with Jimmy and what he meant to you guys.
Jimmy.
James Gandolfini.
Okay, you call him Jimmy as well.
Jimmy,
okay,
I'm
no,
sorry,
okay, sure, go ahead.
James. What was it like working very closely with Edie, like you guys did in the first couple seasons? What was the relationship like with her? What did you learn from her, if anything? And do you guys still maintain contact with her? 6 questions.
Yeah. She was the best as well. Like really present, really professional, really prepared. I think she taught me a lot, like watching her as an actress, just like everything was spontaneous. Nothing was planned. She was just like ready to play. She was quiet, more reserved, which I tend to be too. And yes, that we definitely still keep in touch, and still chat. And, she's like, it's cool to kind of now, like the last conversation her and I had was interesting because now we look at each other as like peers, like we're both women and mothers, and kind of that mother-daughter thing has dissipated a bit. But I always enjoyed when I got to have kind of one-on-one stuff with her because it was always like an acting class, basically.
Mm-hmm. Sort of the interesting thing now, too, obviously that was like big on social media, maybe, I don't know, whatever, it was a year ago, where you're now older than Gandolfini was when The Sopranos started. You're probably older, I would assume, than Edie Falco was. It's kind of like with your parents. When I look at that now, sometimes like, geez, my dad was like 32 then. It's got to be sort of a weird thing that you're older than they were when it started.
Yeah, it's this weird thing where you're like, oh, shit, like they really didn't have it all figured out.
Right, yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, right, yeah.
Yeah.
But that was wild because that was went viral when there was a picture of you next to Gandolfini season 1. Like, holy shit, he's older than he was then.
Yeah, and I can't. It's hard to recognize that. Like for some reason, it's easy for me to see when I was older than my parents because I knew my parents were very young. But James was somebody to me who just always seemed so like. He always had that presence of like like bigger than life, the kind of like, when he entered a room the way he was, that I was like, how am I older than Jim? Like, it just didn't make sense. But for Edie, like whenever I think about Edie, I think about like, obviously she's one of the most incredible actors I've ever seen in real life or on film, but she had these like nails that she would put on as Carmela, and like it was almost like when she put the nails on, and then we would get in the kitchen and she would like tap her fingers on the counter, and it was like watching somebody like all of a sudden she would just become this person because she's very much not like Carmela, yeah. And the same thing with James, he's very much not like Tony. And when you see these people become these, and like when I was there and it was going on, you don't even realize it as much as like later years when you look back and you're like, man, it was so crazy for her. Cause it was like, we would show up and she would be Carmela. Like, you'd hang out with her for 3 hours and she'd be Edie and she would getting her hair done and makeup. And then all of a sudden she was Carmela. And you look at that now and you're like, Jesus, she was just so good. Like, so good.
I'm always amazed, like, when a TV show is great, like, how many things have to work for it to, like, there's a miracle sort of attached to it, like, casting and who wrote it and directing and just the timing of it all. Maybe if it comes out 2 years earlier or later, like, it's kind of miraculous that, and you guys are so young that you probably, while you appreciate it, you probably didn't have the perspective, obviously, that you would have now. I mean, it's like, it was the only thing you knew at that time. You had nothing to compare it to.
I took it all for granted. Like, I always say, like, I wish I was older just so I could have been more grateful of what we were going through. And because there were people on that show who had been acting for 30 years and like finally got this thing where for me, I was like, oh yeah, every 12-year-old is on like a hit show, like this is just fucking normal and cool and whatever. Where now I'm like, man, you look back and you're like, I'm just so great. And more so than like, it was successful and we made money. I look back and I'm like, I'm so grateful to be part of something that, I think a lot of times like people talk about child stars being fuck ups and horrible things that happen to them, this. And I'm like, I could have seen myself being a lot more miserable if maybe, it was some Nickelodeon thing or Disney thing that I was attached to where it was like, I was always being looked at as this weird child thing of this, where like when people bring up Sopranos, it's like, it's so respected that I'm just really grateful for the whole thing,
How does it work? Like, is there anything fun? Like, do you guys get a check every month from like Max or something now, like for $12, or is it just nothing?
No, I get a lot of checks for like $8.95. There's a lot of checks. I don't know if it's still the same because I don't really look at it because it's like so small, the amount of money. But I remember back in the day, it was like there was a lot of checks from like Denmark and just like weird places where I was like, okay,
syndicated or something.
Yeah, I guess it's just getting played international. But yeah, the amount, like we make way less money than like, someone who served coffee on Friends, like way less. Like it's, again.
Yeah, why is that?
Nothing but grateful for the whole thing.
There was a strike right after Sopranos wrapped.
Oh, right.
So we just didn't make it in time. But like Rob said, I mean, like the experience itself was priceless, and it obviously set us up to have success in other ways. So it's not like we're sitting here angry about this, but it is the reality. Like this isn't a show that's like financially supporting us for the rest of our lives, but this was an experience that is beyond money, Yeah.
And also it could lead to, it leads to so many doors opening and if we wanted to go do certain things and, even the podcast we're doing now, that's who I'm doing it with, like it leads to all of it. So it's just, it's great.
All right. Wild card, Steve, go ahead. You have one.
I have one.
Card.
Okay.
One. Yeah.
What do you guys hear from fans the most when you run into them? Like, Robert, do you ever get the no fucking ZD thing? Or like, what do you guys hear the most? Like, do they talk about episodes? Like, what do you guys hear the most when you have fan interaction?
It's one of the questions.
I get that. I would get, where's Tony? I would get, definitely back in the day, I remember a lot more like, questions about like, oh, your sister, like, oh, your sister's hot, or like, where's your sister, like, this kind of thing. But yeah, definitely, it's probably the most thing now still is the ending, I think.
Yeah. Mine's like, are you a better parallel Parker now?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, Meadow is so like, now I have a teenage daughter, and like that's one of the things that David Chase and Jamie was so great in that role, having a teenage daughter. Like the way she would look at Tony sometimes and be like, just like, get the fuck out of here. Like, you're so dumb. Like, it was so perfect. Like, I didn't have kids at that time, so I was like, I didn't understand, but like, it's amazing how well that was, like, unbelievable.
Yeah. I mean, look, they wrote her that way, but I also felt like I grew up in a house where I didn't necessarily like feel like I had the freedom to express myself like that. And so Meadow was an outlet for me to really like let out my teen angst. And it was fun. And she was annoying to a lot of people I know.
And also a lot of Sopranos fans, I can tell their experience with me is not what they thought it would be, because they always try and quote stuff from the Sopranos, and I don't get sometimes that they're quoting from the Sopranos, so it just becomes this weird like them being like, oh hey, haha, and I'm like, what? Like, I don't know what you're talking, and they're like, oh, that's from the show, and I'm like, oh, sorry, and like it's a weird interaction sometimes.
You're never gonna watch the show?
I don't know. I don't think so. I mean,
it's a pretty good show.
That's what people say. I think it was, if I was ever going to watch it, I think James passing away kind of made it to where now I just feel like it would just be 80 hours of torture,
right?
You know?
Right.
But I don't know. I never say never. Like, I don't know if one day I had kids and they wanted to watch it, or if I had a wife or this, but like now I have zero interest. Like, I remember recently, like, 30-second clip popped up on my YouTube because of all this like Sopranos 25th anniversary stuff going on and our thing. And like, I clicked on it, and just seeing that 30 seconds, I was like, ugh, like I just felt like I felt the feeling of like when you're about to get sick, like not like throw up, but like when you're about to get like the flu. Like I was just like, for like 2 hours, I was like, that was gross.
Would you? So if you're, that's actually curious. So if you guys are flipping around and like, I don't know, Crimson Tide is on or something, or Get Shorty, and he's on there, can you not watch that? Like, I mean, I can totally understand that, but is it to that level?
I was watching a movie one time, and I didn't know he was in the movie, and I saw it was some Brad Pitt movie, and I saw him in the.
It's a Mexican, I bet. Yeah.
No, it wasn't the Mexican. I think it was, maybe it wasn't a Brad Pitt. I think he was like coming down an escalator or something. Yeah. And I was just like, nah, like I can't. I just, because it takes you to such a different place, and he's,
right.
And I don't, and it just, because like whenever I talk about Jim or see pictures of Jim, or we talk about Jim, it's like all like love and good and him. And like, then like him, seeing him as a character, I don't know. It's just weird, and it's just easier to live life like not diving into that,
I have the opposite reaction. I love to watch him. I don't watch Sopranos, but if it's on when I'm flipping like at night and I see it's on HBO, I'll watch it for a little while. I like going back because I have a terrible memory. So for me, like I like watching it. I like seeing people that I love, because then it just like, it makes me start to remember more.
Yeah.
And that makes me feel better in my missing. But like for Rob, it triggers him differently.
It also makes me think a lot about like everything he didn't get to do.
Right.
And that's what I think bothers me the most. Cause I'm like, God, there's so much more, than like, obviously like the Tony is so incredible and this and that, but it's like, I just think about like, God, there's so.
I will say, and I'm sure this has been said thousands of times about him, but I've never, ever in my life still to this day have encountered somebody that worked harder on their craft and their job than he did. And that's why he was so great. So if in the end, I'd like to think he would thought I gave him my all. Like I did it. Like I tried, I gave him my all to everything. And he had such respect for what he did, and respect for like the people around him. And even like with us, like scenes with us, he would be mad if he wasn't giving his greatest self. And like that is untouchable, which is why he's remembered the way he is.
He was so good in that movie with Julia Louis-Dreyfus. Enough said. He was, and is that more of who he was, or?
Yes. Yeah. I watched it and I'm like, wow. One of his last roles, he like gave to people like who he is. Like you got to meet Jim in that movie, in my opinion.
Yeah, he was
and
great.
It's something that like we've talked about, but like to know who he really was like, I forget if it was after he passed away or when my manager told me, but my manager told me that James would call my manager on the side and say like, is Robert okay? How's he doing? What is he paying for rent? Like, is he hanging around with the right people and stuff like that? And then he would tell my manager, don't tell Robert I called, So like in this Hollywood fake business of where people want to be seen for these things they do and being on Instagram. Look at me, look what I did. Like, he wanted to make sure I never knew he was checking up on me, you know?
Yeah, it's weird. The people I know in my life who have died, I knew they were going to die. So it's got to be such a different thing when it's, I've never experienced it just being completely unexpected, but I mean, that's just got to be such a, and to have that it's got to be so, it's been what, 10 years now? Is that right? 11 years?
10, because I was pregnant. I remember my son's 10. So
yeah. Oh, geez, how do you jump from? Well, that was your fault, Steve. Things got serious after your wild card.
It's my fault.
I didn't do anything. We were talking about shitting, and now now it's
talking
like
about Ziti.
No, listen to our podcast.
I didn't know it was going to go here.
We love a hard left. We can follow. Don't worry.
Yeah, I'm so like the older I get, all I think about dying now all the time, and like not even in like a positive or negative way, but the idea of death now is like just looms over. Everything I do now, I'm like, geez, I got to do this before I die. Got to make sure my kids do this before I die. Like, death is over the last couple of years for some reason. I don't know if it's pandemic related. I don't know what it is.
Well, now you're being morbid.
I know, but I'm saying, it like consumes me now, and I don't know. I'm not really even afraid of it, but it's like I got to make sure all my stuff like this. I got like a great actor, you can be walking down the street and bam, you get hit by a bus. So these things worry me. That's all. Hopefully, it's after I poop that morning.
Very true.
I would say I don't know. Yes.
Well, it's coming out either way. So
that's a good point.
That's what you hear.
That's a good point.
A lot of people get found dead, and the my buddy he's a cop in New York, and he's like, yeah, it's true. Like, a lot of people, they get shot and then their pants are full.
Oh man,
jeez, is that true? I guess right. They say that about when people get executed too, or whatever. Like that's what that flies out of there. Huh. I don't know. Mike, you have any questions?
Think about how many times baby shit compared to us. You know what I mean? Because they're just so relaxed. It's just like we're holding it in all day. We don't even know.
That is true. I suppose that is true. Mutt, do you have a question?
Well, Rob mentioned his time when he wasted time in Vegas and was drinking and strip clubs.
Mutt is a gambling degenerate.
I just want to know what Rob was gambling on. Was it table games? Was it sports? Like, what were we gambling on our gambling binge in Vegas?
So I went to Vegas for 2 weeks, and I played in the World Series of Poker, and I was in the main event, and I got like 275th place, like around there, and it paid like 40 grand. So I was like, I'm just going to take this and put it in an account and get an apartment here and pretend like I never had this 40 grand. And I basically would just play poker all the time. And then when I was leaving the poker table, I would go to the sports book and lose most of it. Like, I did well playing poker, and then I would lose money gambling sports because I just fucking loved gambling sports.
Do you still bet on sports?
My husband.
Oh, is that? What point did you realize?
My husband are best friends because they just talk more during football season. I feel like you talk mostly during football season, and then it kind of dwindles away. But yeah.
Well, can you watch?
If we're talking not in football season, it's just about how we're waiting for football season.
Can you just watch a game without gambling? Like, could you watch the games this weekend and just say I'm just watching them?
No, I mean, listen, if it's a great game, like, can I watch Kansas City Ravens without gambling? Yeah. But on like a Sunday, if it's like, whoever, like, no way. Like, I'm just all, but then like, there was a trend. I was like, my friend told me about a trend. I think it was like the Ottawa Senators first period over was hitting like 20 games out of 21 games. Jesus. I just started, all of a sudden I was hooked on watching one period of fucking hockey every other night, like it's just like, whatever. Yeah. You start gambling, like,
I think there's a word for that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's called educated gambling. Prime time unders in the NFL.
Yeah,
it's called
doing his homework.
Yeah,
homework, baby.
But it's funny. I'm a huge golf fan. I got into golf gambling a little bit in the last year, and it's true. Like, you get now. I can't. Well, I'm more like last week. I had this guy finishing in the top 20, and like this amateur won on the PGA Tour last week. I didn't even care about it. I'm like, is my guy going to finish in the fucking top? Like, it's in a way making it more interesting, but yet taking away the purity of enjoying it. It's like a battle that I'm now dealing with and losing probably.
100%. The weirdest thing for me, which I try and like, I talk to people who I play poker with, I talk to people who I sports gamble with, of like why this is. But if I win, let's say I win $1,000 playing poker, I don't even like bat an eye. But if I win $250 betting sports, I'm pumped. Like, it's a totally different thing, and I don't know. I guess it's because it's less out of my control. What I also like about sports betting, I feel like is what like internet sleuths like about like solving a case. Like I don't like just, oh, there's a game on, putting money on it. I really like to like all week listen to podcasts and get information and then think I'm making, like you said, an educated gambler, like I'm trying to solve some mystery in my head. And when you do, and you're right, it feels fucking great.
Right. Here's an interesting tie-in. So before I did this show at Barstool, I was on WEEI, a radio station in Boston, and I had a podcast there called Enough About Me. And who was my most famous fight with on that show? Do you remember?
I forget.
Former baseball player. Played for the Mets,
Lenny?
the Phillies.
Lenny Dykstra, yes.
Lenny Dykstra. And I had a huge fight on Enough About Me, and that is your father-in-law, right?
Uh-huh.
I can't believe somebody would get in a fight with Lenny Dykstra.
What are the odds, right?
Shocking.
Is he doing okay? Am I allowed? I don't want to make you want.
He's not in our lives.
Is that an uncomfortable subject? If it is, don't worry about it. We can move
not
on.
at all.
Okay.
Look, I have had a lot of wonderful times with Lenny and have seen him in like a great way. Mm-hmm. And just, we have the relationship we have that's like just the best for everybody in our lives right now. But like, even my husband will tell me, he like really, there's great sides to everybody and there's really great sides to Lenny.
Yeah.
That's what I'll say.
There's
also the other stuff that's just not kind of my vibe, but there are really good sides to him.
Yeah, I'm sure there are. I just don't, he like wasn't on Earth that day. Like we just were not on the same path.
I'd imagine.
Yeah, I was going to say, I suspect you know what I'm talking about. It was an interesting conversation.
What was the fight about?
The fight was about, he had a book coming out and
something you didn't believe in the book.
There were things in the book and there were things that were going on in his life that were not adding up. And I was like, well, you owe all this money. I mean, the interview, we could send you the link. It's literally like, I don't know, you guys.
A couple minutes?
It's like 4 minutes. And we're screaming at each other and he hung up. And I think the New York Times wrote about it, as I recall. But like, it was fine. We were yelling at each other and I was kind of like, well, this doesn't sound like Nails. Where's the tough guy? And he's screaming, fuck you. I'm screaming. It was a really, I'm sure, dumb argument, like most of my arguments are. But I remembered reading that you were, you're married to his son, right? Yeah. So, yeah. So, but I remember that.
He was a great guy, by the way.
I'm sure. Yeah. No, I have no doubt. I have no doubt. And Lenny was a great player, by the way. But yeah, it was it was a pretty funny. I mean, I haven't heard it. It was probably 10 years ago.
It's got to be 10 years.
It's been a while.
Shocked.
Yeah, I figured. Yeah, I figured. It'd be interesting being Lenny.
Can we talk about Barstool shit?
Whatever you want to know.
Well, were you watching him on Survivor, Rob? I hear you say you watched him on. Were you rooting for him on Survivor?
Probably not.
I was rooting for you. Listen, I think if there was a final four of like just the most interesting people at Barstool to have on a show, I think it's you, Jerry, Dave, and Rico. I think there's, and I don't think there's a close fifth.
Right. Well, there were a lot of drips in that room for sure. Yeah. It's funny. So like, you're playing. So it was Jamie, we did like this Survivor, but we did it with some of the Barstool personalities. We lived in the New York office for a week. And it's fun. You get super crazy. I didn't think I was going to be into it, but I was so into the game. And once I lost, I've said this, like you lose, you get voted out. Somebody stabbed me in the back. That's the game. You lose. You walk down the hall. The Barstool, Brandon Walker's sister, who's in charge of travel, hands you your hotel. She's like, you're staying in this hotel. You go outside, and after being like in this bubble for 72 hours, I walked up and down the streets of New York like Travis Bickle for like a day. I was like, I had nothing to do with all this energy. I literally went to some pizza place like 11 o'clock at night. I was so irrationally angry losing this. I can't even put into words how upset I was.
Because you're consumed by it. It was your own life. I was obsessed with Big Brother for a really long time. Yeah. And like 11, 12 years ago, my friends and I all hired this company. And for 3 days, we locked ourselves down in our friend's house and they set up for us to properly play a Big Brother.
That's a great idea.
That's really good.
That's a great idea.
That's good.
That's a great idea.
There's still to this day somebody I don't talk to. We call it Balloon Gate because it was about this game, and I don't like the way he handled it. And it took a lot out of him as a person. So I get
it. Sounds like you got a lot of Kirk in you, Jamie.
You know what? Put me in this extreme situation. I probably do.
It's funny though, Jamie, because I do. So there are guys. This guy Will Compton, who's on my team, who wound up winning. And like every couple of weeks, we'll still text each other. Like or KFC, I'll still text him and be like, "Boy, I can't believe I did that. Or he'll text me like, can you fucking believe I did it? Like, we're still grown men. We're still talking about this months later. Like, months later. Yeah. It was great. It was fun. Unfortunately, I got kicked off of YouTube, but, you know, that's the way it is. Yeah.
Oh, that's a bummer. Well, it sounds like you need to do round 2.
I think maybe we will. Yeah, are you a big Barstool guy overall, Rob? Or?
Yeah, I'm big Barstool guy. I mean, sports advisor. I'm like one of the, like, when it says like there's 12 people in the chat waiting for sports advisors to come on Friday. Like, I'm one of them where I'm like, I can't fucking wait for sports.
Good.
I think sports advisors might be the best thing on the internet. Like, it's so good because when I'm listening to like football stuff and everything, it's so like, some of it is so intense and so like statistics and this, and they're just like, Stu Feiner is fucking unreal. Like,
crazy.
It's just the best.
He's the craziest. I did a Rough and Rowdy a couple of years ago, and I was managing somebody, and he was managing the other person in the fight, and I didn't really know Stu that well. And I walked out to my son in the hotel in Alabama. No, where was it? Was it West Virginia? And I had never met him. He walked up to me and he kissed me full on the lips. He was sweating. He was screaming. He's like, you see this girl? We're going to find this girl. Oh, look at her. We're going to fuck her. I'm like, what the hell is going on here? Then he went on to somebody else that did the same thing. I was like, this is the way he lives his entire life all the time.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever wanted to meet a celebrity. And I was at a Giants game like a few months ago, and I heard that Stu was in the building. And I was like, fuck, how do I find Stu? Because it's just, he's so good. He's so him. It's great.
That's funny.
I have to apologize because I have to hop off.
Go ahead.
I'm leave.
Oh, yes. Yes. No, thank you.
I could stay.
Thank you, Jamie.
It's up to you.
Yeah. Stick around for a few minutes if you want. No, thank you so much, Jamie. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Jamie.
Love you.
All right. See you soon, hopefully. Thank you. Yeah,
I don't have kids and I have a gambling problem, so I have nothing but time.
Have you? So your celebrity is Stu Feiner, of course. Mine is Bruce Springsteen, who I'm going to guess you've met.
Yeah. They and you know what's a shame is like because we got a phone call of like, hey, little Stevie wants to invite everyone to the Springsteen concert. And it was, I don't know how old I was, maybe 14 or 15. So again, it was one of those things that like I went to. We were backstage with him and the entire E Street band for hours hanging out before or after, I forget. And like, we have pictures of it and this. And like, at the time, I'm like, I don't know who, like, you know, I had heard maybe 2 or 3 Bruce songs before and didn't even,
Jesus, that's
depressing.
I
was like, yeah, this is Stevie's friend. Like, I don't know. Like, yeah, cool, whatever. And then we saw him perform. Then I saw him perform again. And yeah, I remember we were, there were a few joints being passed around the crew, and it was funny because it was the first time, you know, maybe I was 14, 15, and it was the first time you saw, like, because I was smoking weed at the time, it was the first time you saw, like, oh, okay, this person smoked, oh, this person does. Like, there were people who were like, I'm walking away from this situation, and there were other people who were like, you know, pass it here, and I was like, oh, this is cool.
Oh, I got to ask this because it's a famous Kirk Minihane show Sopranos moment. So we had, I was a big fan of the podcast Talking Sopranos. That's the right name, right? Did I have that right?
Yeah.
With, we had Steve Sherpa and Michael Imperioli on the show. I have to say, Sherpa was great. I got the sense that Michael Imperioli really hated me. You remember this, Steve?
Yeah, I do remember.
Yes, I got the sense. He seemed very serious. He seemed like he didn't like me.
He couldn't take the joke.
Yeah, he didn't like me at all. Like, I asked him at one point, and maybe it's a dumb question. I said to him, because he's a very smart guy, as you know, he's written, he's a great, a great actor. I said, was it difficult to play somebody that dumb? And he said, I don't think Christopher was dumb. He seemed almost offended by the question. I felt like he shut down after that. Is he that kind of guy, or did I get him on a bad? Is it me? I don't know. You know, I'm asking you. I don't know.
Listen, he's a great guy. He's always been great with me. Always had great times with him. But if there was one thing I have heard about him, is I've heard a lot of like people who like to fucking, you know, joke around and be silly. That like he's a serious guy. You know?
Right.
And I remember when he did Rogan, some people were kind of like, oh, does he seem like he doesn't want to be there? But I also think he's an extremely good listener, and he's also a writer. So I think he's always like intensely picking up on stuff and taking things in rather than just like, you know, not giving a fuck and being goofy. Like, I think he's always dialed in, you know, and it could be intense. And sometimes I have heard people taking it in a way of like, you know, he doesn't like me or this, but he's a great dude. And he's, you know, I've never seen him be like mean to anyone in person or anything like that.
He's a great actor. Did you watch The White Lotus in this past season with him?
No, but I tried to watch the first season of White Lotus and couldn't get into it. But I heard season 2 is great.
I have a question. Have you ever watched a television show before in your life? I'm sorry.
Yeah, listen, I'm fucking obsessed with Fargo right now.
The new season or?
The new season is great, but I just
season one is like one of the best seasons of TV ever, I think.
All time. Yeah. Season 1 is unreal. Season 2 is great too. 3 and 4 are all right, but like I think 5 they came back. I think John Hamm is great. I think I think season 5 is real. Have you seen it?
No, I haven't seen season 5 yet. No, I will. I'll watch it at some point. I think it's season 5. Did you watch Mad Men? Because obviously that's the Sopranos guy who did it. That's Mutt and I. That's probably that's my second favorite show after the Sopranos.
I think when Mad Men was going on was when I was in my like full
you're out of it
state, and I wasn't watching anything. Yeah, like I couldn't, I was fucking darting all over the place. I was just like, if it wasn't like playing online, because I was taking like 15 Percocets a day, and I was like, I needed to be stimulated by like online poker, 16 hours a day, or drinking or partying or whatever.
How are you battling these demons?
What's funny is when I did Dr. Drew, he's like, some people, and I think he said it was like, my grandma's like Czechoslovakian I think Czechoslovakian, and he's like, there's people who have like Czechoslovakian in them or whatever. We're like, because I told him, I'm like, my grandfather was a alcoholic. I mean, drank every fucking day. He would go to lunch on work and just never come back. Like, because there was a bar that would offer sandwiches, so they knew that was how to get the guys in there. And then he would just get fucking wasted, drunk every night. And when I forget how old he was, like 65. And one day he was just like, yeah, I'm done. And that was it. And that's not what happened with me. I definitely like had to hit rock bottom, and I had to go see a specialist in this. But now it's like, I almost... Well, one thing is like I don't even recognize that person, but the other thing is I think I never learned the tools to how to deal with fucking life, and now I have working out and meditation and just a whole bunch of stuff, eating healthy, cooking, like things where I'm like, I think about drinking now and I'm like, that would ruin my life. Like I enjoy feeling good, where before I didn't really understand that was the thing. Like I didn't think you could wake up feeling good. I always woke up feeling like shit for, over 10 years every day, because I was either, hungover or I needed fucking pills or whatever. So now it's like I wake up every day. I'm so grateful just to feel good.
Yeah. So what's the rest of the day like? I have kids. What's the rest of the day like for a guy with no kids and who just gambles all day? So we're done in a few minutes here. Walk me through the rest of the day. I'm curious.
Who just gambles all day?
Yeah.
It depends. It depends on the day. It depends what I'm doing. Sometimes I'll get a call that there's a poker game going. I'll be at that game till 6, 7 in the morning if it's really good. And I try not to do that as much anymore. I try to keep it to like regular hours and whatever. But yeah, it depends. Like I wake up every day. I try and I have like a 90-minute morning routine where I drink 64 ounces of water. I do this meditation. I have this new like headset thing Jamie introduced me to, with there's like lights and you do a meditation. Then
aren't you pissing? Are you pissing all day or no? My bladder is so bad. You're okay with it?
No, it's not bad. It's okay. I'm all right. Yeah, I could handle it.
Oh, good.
Also, I don't drink anything else. So I don't drink coffee. I don't drink
soda. No, you're right.
Sugary drinks. I don't drink shit that like
pretty pure.
It's just it's strictly water. But then I try and work out every day that I can. Then I'll go to like Whole Foods. I'll try and buy some stuff. I'll try and cook a really healthy meal. Then after I eat, I always go for a walk. My brother just moved here, so sometimes I'll go meet my brother. I'll play pickleball. I'll do this. But I basically live like a retired.
What is this life? What is this life awesome. Of yours? What is going on?
What a great life.
This is amazing.
Sign us up.
How? So
listen, I mean, when I feel when sometimes because sometimes they say it's like everybody has it, but like that Irish guilt where I'm like, I don't deserve this. It's really bad. What I do think back on is like I started working when I was 6 years old, and I worked all the way until I was 22. And listen, it wasn't I wasn't laying down railroad tracks, but it's just I think I always had that in the back of my head of like, man, I wish I could be with my friends right now. I wish I could just be hanging out right now.
Sure.
So now that I have the option to not have a boss, and I mean, obviously, like now I work for Tom and Christina, but it's like it's like working for two of your friends who are like, yeah, if you want to come in. Once a week and do this pod. If you, like, they're so cool. They've given no notes about, you have to do this or whatever. They're just like, yeah, we hope you're having a good time. And I never honestly thought I would work for anyone else again. Like this was just the perfect situation where I was like, I loved their podcast. I thought they were funny. I hung out with them and they were super fun. And they were like, hey, if you want to come here and have fun. I was like, yeah, that sounds great.
Do you ever do these things where you go to like a convention place in like Hartford and sign stuff for like a weekend or like?
I've done one in the last like 15 years.
Yeah.
And listen, I don't want to shit on it in any way. Like it's great to meet the fans. And if one day I can't pay my rent, like maybe I'll be, doing that. But it's just, I didn't feel good about it after. And mainly it was because you're meeting someone who wants to talk to you and you have somebody else like rushing them away to be like, hey, get out of here. And it's very like, I don't know, you feel like kind of like a robot. And then it's weird. I don't know. It wasn't like, again, I don't want to put it down. I know people who do it and they love it and enjoy it. For me, I would rather not.
Yeah, I have no problem doing it for VIP at my live shows. None. Just line them up. No, I just just hello. Yeah, thanks. Take a picture. Get the fuck out of here. Yeah.
Here's the thing. See, I think that's different. I think that I could do in a different way. At this convention, it's a room full of people who don't know you.
Right.
So what you're getting is maybe you're like a piece of meat where like out of 10 people who walk by, 9 people might look at you and go, nah, I don't think he's worth the $50.
Yeah, somebody's looking for Jenny Garth or something. Yeah,
right. And you're like with the one that I did, it was like Priscilla Presley, and then they would come over to me and tell me they met Priscilla, and I was like, oh, that's great, man. Like, like with you, it's like not only is everyone there to see you, but they also know who you fucking are. So if you're like, hey, get out of here, they're like, oh, Kirk told me to get out of here.
Right. That's true. Yeah, that's true. What was I going to ask? Shit. I don't know. Steve, you have another question? I had a good question. God damn it. Go ahead.
Do you ever think about going back into acting, or are you pretty much retired? Are you waiting for like maybe a good script to come up, or?
Yeah, I absolutely not. I hate acting. If it's up to me, I would never do it again. But like a year or so ago, Tom Segura came to me with something that he was like, hey, I think you would like this and I would love if you would do it and whatever. And it was great. And I knew it would only be like 3 days. And so I did that. And it was the dream scenario where like, I loved everyone I was working with. I loved the stuff, and like by day 2, I just hated myself. I hated doing it. I hate like the idea of how free I live my life now. And then somebody being like, okay, stand here, eat this, wear this, turn your head. Like just all of it is so fucking uncomfortable. And then another thing was like, because of how normal my life is kind of now, that like when you go to these sets, it's very weird that like, me and Jamie did a Super Bowl commercial.
Right.
And somebody came into like, they gave us your own fucking trailer that was like a block. Like it was, Chevy Super Bowl. It was like as big as it fucking like as cush as it gets. And somebody came into like my trailer every hour and would be like, oh, do you need anything? And I'd be like, no, do you? Like, I don't, like, I'm not comfortable in that thing anymore of like, hey, this is about you. And there's this kind of like hierarchy on set. It made me very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Do you think we'll bring this podcast on the road at all or no?
No, I think a lot of people who do that, they are like comedians who like, if things started going bad, they would know how to kind of fucking dig it out. Where I'm like, well, me and Jamie are not live performers where it's like, if things start going bad and like, listen, if it's 2 years down the road where it's like, we have maybe certain segments where we think, oh, this would work great live. And this like right now, I would want to do at least a, 2-hour show live. And I think the likelihood of that going bad right now is too high.
Right. That makes sense. Yeah. We waited. Our first big show was probably a year and a half in or something. Yeah, that makes sense. And then you kind of know what works, what doesn't work. Bits of people are going to like. That's true. Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Do you enjoy doing the live shows?
Yeah. But there's always yes, I like it. But ours are like really planned. The big ones are really planned out, and it's like a bunch of stuff filmed, and we have a band playing. It's a lot of production element to it. So, but yeah, you're always thinking like, and I'm always worried it's going to suck. And if it sucks, everyone's going to think it sucks, and then that sticks with me because our last one was a disaster. The sound was terrible. I'm still fucked up like 6 months later. So yeah, I battle with that stuff.
And that's the thing. It's like, I would feel so horrible if because I would imagine, because we've talked about it before, and it's like, if we did something like that, I think a lot of it would be like maybe pre-taped kind of bits and then like putting it up and showing it to people. And like, if all of a sudden they're like, oh, the TV's not working. I'm like, we don't have what Tom and Christina have, which is like, well, we could just entertain these guys for an hour and a half with just standing here. You know?
Right. Yeah. Steve, anything else?
No, I'm good.
You're good.
Yeah,
anything else for a fellow degenerate gambler?
The only other one I had, you play a lot of poker, it sounds like. Are those Hollywood poker games that are
It's
portrayed
amazing.
on TV?
He's
a poker addict
part of the greatest show in the history of television. You don't care about that.
And he's lighting up every time we're talking sports.
All you care about, just two degenerates just want to talk about your fucking
move on away,
gambling.
Kirk. Go back to your Barstool stuff.
Who do you like this weekend? Who do you think going to win the football games?
It's a better question, Steve. Go ahead.
I think so I took the 49ers the week before they played the Cowboys as a future bet because I thought they were going to crush the Cowboys, and I thought that would probably be the best time to get them. So I have them at plus 500 to win the Super Bowl. So I'm going to stay off that game. But if I was going to bet that game, I can't. I think I've liked the Niners all year, but man, what I'm really thinking more about is when the Niners win, who would I rather them play? Which is like, I think Baltimore is better, but I think the experience of being at multiple Super Bowls and this for Mahomes might be better for the Chiefs. It's tough. Where the Super Wild Card weekend, I liked a bunch of games, and I was like, okay, here's what I like. I was super into it. Where like this weekend with only 2 games, I'm like, fuck this, and having my future already, I'm like, this is tough. But I kind of think Lamar rushing yards over might be the best bet out there.
There you go. There's a winner, Mutt. You hear that?
There you go.
Yes.
What's the number, Mutt? You would know.
It came out early.
And then it went to like 64.
It's gone up.
Maybe?
It went up, started in the 50s, I think, or high 40s. It's 60-something this morning.
I know you mentioned that first period, the Ottawa thing. What is the most pathetic, like, holy shit, I'm a fucking loser bet? Is that the one you've made in your life? Is there a moment where you're like, what is there something you're like, some sport somewhere or no?
I mean, listen, I've done all this stuff. I've done, the women's softball when I was living in Vegas and stuff like that. But I think it was more so like when I was taking a lot of Percocets, I was really into betting the NBA, and I would just be
That's
a tough one.
What'd you say?
It's the toughest sport to bet. The tilt at the end of games is brutal.
Yeah, and that's the thing is like I would always be the most mad at myself with like if there were 2 games I liked and whether I went 2-0 or 1-1, I would always then like when I was in New York it'd be the 10 o'clock games or 10:30, I forget when they started, but I think 10 o'clock, and I would then just have to bet, so I would have all these bets of like Memphis Grizzlies and like the Clippers when they sucked and this. I would always be like, why the fuck did I do that? But I remember on the opposite side, like one of the greatest things I remember betting was one time it was like the Mets against the Yankees, and I had bet the Yankees run line, and I think the Yankees were up by 1, and they walked the Mets walked the bases loaded to get Mariano Rivera to the plate, I think, and then I think somehow it was like K-Rod walked Mariano to bring in the run to get me, and I was in the fucking sports book losing my mind. And you just make best friends with some stranger because they also bet the Yankees run line, and you're just fucking having the best time of your life.
See, I was going to make a Davey Scavino, Robert Patrick joke, but Robert, I have no fucking idea what I'm talking about. It's from season 2 of The Sopranos. You have no idea, right? No.
I was just bummed because I thought I didn't get a sports reference. I'm one of those guys. But no, and I feel proud when I don't know The Sopranos.
He was great.
Another thing.
Yeah, he was good.
When you don't know about Sopranos stuff, it's a huge relief when fans want to come up to me and ask me all these questions, and I can just go, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about.
It's kind of a cool thing. You kind of get that, like, yeah, I don't know, man. Like I just did it. I didn't watch it. Like that's a good way to play it. I like that. And it's also like my memory of Sopranos is perfection. Like to where if I go back and I watch it and I'm like, oh, I hate that they used this take, or I look stupid, or I'm such an asshole, or I'm this, then like I don't want some negative, bad, or that. Like when I look back on Sopranos, I'm like, I could fucking talk about how great it was forever because it really was. True. Yeah. And you don't have to watch Vito and Johnny Cakes make out, which is was a very great, but a very weird moment for me in television history. I was like, wow. That's where I give David Chase credit though. Like, he just didn't give a fuck. He's like, the audience is not going to be into this, but I want to do it. So we're spending half a season on Vito's love story in New Hampshire with fucking Johnny Cakes, which is.
Or a different angle with Tony when he got shot. It was a whole different character.
Right. It takes huge balls. Like, he just kind of did whatever. Like, so I was reading a lot about him lately, especially. And sort of, he was saying that he doesn't think people can change. He said, basically, there's a whole article in Time Magazine a couple weeks ago where he's like, I'm just a dark person. Is that the way he was with you as kids, or was he lighter?
No, but I would hear a lot of people who would say, like, oh, he likes you. You know, which I think, like you said, it was just because I was a kid. I was 12 or 13, right. So he was warm to me and sweet. But yeah, he was great. Like, I never saw him that. But there were always, he would make jokes about how he was, like, you know, a little dark or whatever, like you said. And I never, that was never what I picked up from him. But I was also, again, I was the star of my own fucking music video back then. Like, I was 15, I was on a hit show. I'm like, so there's a scene where I think Terry Winter was directing, and it was a scene where Blanca broke up with me, and I'm supposed to be like laying in bed, and I don't know if I'm contemplating suicide or I'm thinking about this, and you know, like, it's weird because, like, the room is really dark, and he comes over and he's kind of talking to you and he's kind of getting you in the mood or whatever. And he's like, you know, those times where you're just questioning life of, like, why do we exist? Why are we here on earth? Why are we doing? And when he stopped, I looked at him and I was like, nah, man. Like, I was 20 years old on the best show. And what people were saying was the best show ever. Any club in New York would be like, hey, you want to come in here and drink for free? And I was like, no, I know exactly why we're here, to fucking have a ball, bro. Like, I don't know. Yeah. Now, obviously, I'm 38. I understand what he was saying a lot more. But it was, I always think back on that moment. I'm like, God, he must have hated me so much in that moment where I was like, nah, I don't get what you're saying.
I didn't know before, and I haven't seen them after. I never knew what Lincoln Logs were as a food.
I was just thinking of that.
Same thing.
I think is that a Jersey thing?
It must be, right? Coleman's my producer. You're from Jersey.
I've never heard of that.
You remember that, obviously, Robert. That's from when you were in the pool. He's eating the Lincoln
Hot
Logs.
dog rolls and cream cheese?
Yeah. Have you ever seen those?
No, but I remember it sparked.
Is it a Jersey thing? Yeah.
I think it's a Jersey thing, but also, like, it sparked a debate on set, which, like, it was so 50-50, which is like, is a hot dog a sandwich?
Sure. Right. It is not. My son Harry and I have had this argument, and he says yes. We just had this argument recently, and I said it is not a sandwich. For some reason, it doesn't pass the smell test of a sandwich. It's not a sandwich.
That's how I feel. But then if it's like, oh, it's two slice, it's deli meat basically in between fucking two slices of bread. I'm like, yeah. But then, like, you know, then you start getting into fucking a hamburger's a sandwich. And I'm like, well, then you can never say, like, what's the best sandwich ever? Because it's always going to be a cheeseburger is always going to be better than a fucking turkey sandwich.
This is true. It's why Gandolfini was I think the greatest. Carol O'Connor's great in All the Family. But that scene, he walks in and Robert has jumped into the pool or whatever. Yeah. He sees the Lincoln Logs. And if you watch a scene, he has a moment. There's like a brief shot of such joy when he sees them and he kind of smells them. He's just so happy. And then he sees what's good. He was just the fucking greatest. He was like the idea of that show without him is any of the cast, but they talked about other people. They talked about Steven Van Zandt in that role. They talked about Ray Liotta. Those are all great actors, but it's impossible. It's not possible.
I always hear that, and James was, you know, arguably the best ever, but I always hear that, and I feel like people don't talk enough, and again, I didn't watch the show, but people don't talk enough about Carmela, I feel.
Oh, like, great. She's fantastic. Yeah.
She is, like, I really don't know if there's, and this is kind of the same, or it is the same for James, where it's like, I don't know if anyone could have done a better job. Like, she was so fucking good. It was just insane. Like, I remember there over the 10 years, whatever, there were probably happened twice or whatever, where, like, in a scene, I lost it. Like they were like, it was just silence because I was just watching it. Right. You know, where you were like, fuck, like, she's so like James had this amazing way of acting that would get you so engaged, where somehow, like, sometimes Edie had a way of acting that was so amazing. You would just become like a fit where I would be watching her. I'd be like, man, where is this coming from? Like, this is so crazy. Or like Jim would be so intense. He would, like, demand your attention, where, like, Edie would just do these kind of little things where you'd be watching her being like, God, she's so good, you know?
Yeah, him I knew from Crimson Tide and from Get Shorty, from a lot of stuff. Like, I knew when he was cast, I thought it was a surprise, but her I knew a little bit from Oz, but I didn't expect. And she did nothing after like that. Like, all her stuff is, you know.
Nurse Jackie. And
so she's a great actress, but like, you're right. Yeah, so anyway.
How's your relationship with Rico right now?
Much like you don't watch The Sopranos, I don't talk to Rico anymore. It's we're in a tough spot. We're in a tough spot.
The pain that people feel when they didn't like the finale. That's how I feel when you say you don't talk to Rico.
Hey, I did.
That hurts my heart.
So that's a great one because I'm open to it. Like the finale of The Sopranos, I hated when I first saw it because I like you wanted the real fireworks you got the second to last episode. Everybody dies, you know, Bobby dies, and da da da. This is as older I get, the better the finale is. So I think I'm willing to. I reached out. I said on the show yesterday, Robert. I said Rico and I did some trivia stuff where I'm now open to sitting down and breaking bread with Rico and getting back to, because you know he's my brother. So, but I think he feels a little wounded with Rico. It's, you know, you got to play. You know, Rico is he's most like Paulie Walnuts. That's who he's, you know,
100%.
Yeah, he's the Paulie Walnuts of Barstool. He needs to be loved. Like he would, you know, he'd talk to anybody who loves him. So I'm trying to get there with him, but we're okay. I think we'll be okay. Yeah, you're a Rico
and the
guy.
thing with Paulie Walnuts is everyone around knows Paulie Walnuts is Paulie Walnuts.
Correct, except for Paulie Walnuts. Yeah, yes.
You gotta. And again, like I think you're, you know, like it's harder for you to not be authentic, but I feel like but it's, you know, your dynamic with him is so great, but I love, you know, you watch the way that like Dan is with him, where he knows exactly who he is.
I call it,
he knows who Rico is, and he accepts it.
I tell Dan all the time, I say, you speak fluent Bosco. And like I speak good Bosco, but Dan, he speaks Bosco, the language. He should teach a course in college about it, because sometimes you have to get off the escalator with Rico and just take a break and just kind of come back. And I think we're going to be okay. So yeah, no, we'll be okay. I will do that for you, since you gave me so many hours of joy and you came in here. I will try and repair this relationship. I can do that at least.
Please, I could watch fucking you guys. I mean, just he's, and I guess that's what people loved about, you know, Paulie Walnuts, and why they could watch him forever, and that most people that was their favorite character. But like he's so good.
Well, here's the problem now, though. Is what you did is now I'm going to talk to him or whatever, and he's going to be like, yeah. Or he'll be talking to somebody who's like, oh, yeah, you might not be, you know, Bob Iler, he loves me. So it don't matter. Like, it's fine. Yeah, whatever. Like, I'm the guy that all the guy in The Sopranos like I'm the biggest star on the show. He'll do that whole thing now.
But you never know. He could be typing right now somewhere, fuck him, I'm not Paulie Walnuts. So you never know.
That's true.
How he's going to take it. I hope. Hey, Rico, it's nothing but love.
That is true.
Don't stick the riders on me, bro. I'm a
You don't want that. You don't want the riders.
I'm a big Rico guy.
Yeah, you want them in the fans. You don't want the riders. Just play. Yeah. I would say Junior was my favorite, and Paulie Walnuts is my second favorite. But I mean, they were all great. They're fucking great.
Yeah, Junior, Sylvio
was great. Yeah, we've had Stevie on here too. We've had Stevie, now Jamie, Robert, Steve, and
Michael.
And Michael. Yeah, I mean, Jesus Christ, not bad. So the podcast is called Not Today, Pal. Correct? It's the same production company as Lauren Compton we had on the other. Right? Am I right, Coleman?
Yeah, yesterday.
Okay. Yeah. Blind Mike, who comes on here once in a while, is trying to. Is in love with Lauren Compton, so we tried to make that happen as well. Well, it's true.
How did it work out?
I'm not sure it was exactly a home run, but I think we made progress. We made slight strides.
She invited him on the show.
Cannot waste those talents on somebody who's partially blind.
That is true. Very blind, not partial. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Believe me. Yeah, it's true. So it's called Not Today, Pal. It's available on all. They just did the 25th anniversary one. They have a bunch of guests all the time. Like I said, I'm trying to get into. I've listened to like 5 or 6 episodes. I like it. Anytime you guys want somebody from Barstool, I'd be happy to come on. I'm not forcing myself on there, but I'm a big fan of the podcast. So if you ever want somebody from Barstool,
if you're ever in Austin, we would fucking love to have you on, man.
Maybe Mike and I will go. Mike is going to go.
Makes sense.
Mike's going to Austin to do the Lauren Compton thing. Maybe we'll go together, and I'll do it anytime. Yeah, I'd be happy.
Dude, would love to have you. On our last podcast, we that me and Jamie did, we did it through COVID, and like I loved doing the podcast so much, and then COVID hit, and like I think doing 1 or 2 episodes over Zoom, it's like whatever, but we ended up doing so many over Zoom that like when we did this and like Tom and Christina on the same page where it was like, we don't want to fucking do Zoom. Like, we don't, you know, we just
never did it. Like once it started, my producer, me, the other guy, I was like, everyone kind of was like, I don't think we ever did a Zoom episode throughout the whole thing.
You're traveling sometimes. That was it.
We traveled, but like, I was, cause you know, it's different. Like this has been great, but it is different. The like get, especially if you know each other, that dynamic when you're it just takes away from the authentic. But I'm telling you, I've been listening to it. I said at the beginning, I'm enjoying it. It's great.
Thank you. Yeah, and it's also different for you because you already have this like loyal fan base. So I think if you have a loyal fan base and you've been doing it for years,
right.
I think doing a Zoom episode, they understand. We're 25 episodes in, and to start thinking to people, hey, we're going to be throwing Zooms around. It's like, nah, you know?
Right. And now she's gone. I can tell you, Lenny Dykstra was fucking crazy. Like, fucking crazy.
Yeah, you guys had it out.
No. I'm sure she understands. Yeah. I felt bad. I didn't want to put her in a bad spot.
It's fully documented.
Yeah, you're right. Well, I didn't want to make her uncomfortable either. I felt bad, but yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, no, she's definitely, she's heard it all with that. But he's, listen, he is who he is because he's a crazy guy. And,
right.
And like she said, he's got great qualities, but unfortunately, you know, we've all got our demons, and unfortunately, you know, his are a little darker than others.
And I forgot to mention this. She sang the national anthem of the Celtics game when I was younger. My brother Ryan was there, and Ryan had a big crush on her. And Ryan went up and she said hi to him. He said she was very nice. Yeah, I should have mentioned.
Yeah,
that.
she's done Jets games, Giants games. She was on Broadway. She did Beauty and the Beast on Broadway and this, but I could honestly say, as somebody who has to work to be a good person, and like my instinct is not to go that way.
Same.
One thing like I love about her so much is like, and I've wanted to spend time around her as much as possible my whole life, is like, she really is like, her instinct and her gut is to always go to like the nicest way and giving people credit and this. And it's something I love being around because it helps me in my life to be like, oh yeah, like I should look more at I think fully looking at the good side I feel like I'm like, that would be weak. Like I can't do that, you know, but like being around her and being like, okay, I should look more at the world the way she does, and she helps me with that. So she's a great person.
Yeah. All right. It's not Today Pals, a podcast. Go everywhere. I don't want to bother Robert anymore. He has to go to the Whole Foods. He's got an hour to kill at Whole Foods.
The NBA games are tonight.
NBA.
Yeah. Oh, NBA. Forget NBA.
Ottawa
Senators. Yeah.
Division 3.
I forgot the sauna. I also try and hit the sauna. Let's not forget the sauna.
We can't leave the sauna.
No, you can't.
Yeah. You gotta do your sauna time. That's important.
If you're a guy, it's almost like, you know, hooking up with a hot chick when you're younger. The only point of doing the sauna is to then go tell a bunch of guys.
He did the sauna. Yeah. I got my sauna in today. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man, the sauna was extra hot, you know.
Well, we appreciate it. We'll talk to you, I'm sure, down the line.
Yeah. Whenever you want. You guys got my information now.
All right. Thanks, Roger.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Thanks.